Are you ready?
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes.
I'm so glad to see you all here. I know it's exciting when you get a buyer, and then I know it's terrifying when they say, I love this house, help me buy this house. And so what many of you have probably witnessed in your time here is that we have systems for everything, literally everything. And offer writing is no different. And it's a lot more involved and sort of elaborate than just sitting down to your computer and pulling up the MLS and filling out forms. The reason for that is, the analogy I always use with people is chocolate chip cookies. If you made awesome chocolate chip cookies, would you make them different the next time you made them? Or would you follow the same recipe?
Follow.
Right? You follow every time. And no matter how many times you made them, you'd probably make them the same way. The reason for that is you want a predictable outcome, a yummy, delicious cookie, right? And if you start changing things, there's no guarantee you'll get that outcome. Well, systems in business work the same way. When you follow a structured process of doing things, you have a greater right to predict the outcome. So what's the outcome we want?
Winning.
What is it?
Win.
We want to win, right? And a win is defined as our offer being chosen. That's pretty powerful, right? Especially in this climate when, man, there's not many houses. Last week's training, I probably scared the crap out of you, showing you that inventory in King County fell by 70% in just 90 days. And it's not surging back either, right? So it really puts a premium on being able to not only find a house for your client, but make sure you win and rise above the other 8 offers that that seller might be receiving, right? So we are going to cover everything and anything that's involved because we want to win, right? We also like to make sure that our clients don't pay too much for houses, don't you think? Isn't that important to them? Absolutely, right? So we have a process built into our offer writing system to make sure that our clients don't overpay. Now, does that mean that they will never pay more than the asking price? No. That means that they will never regret what they paid, right? And we'll cover emotional premium and some of the other things that we use to help them do that. We also want to make sure that you and I avoid liability, right? A poorly written offer could cost you the house, cost your client the house. A poorly written offer could cost your client their earnest money. A poorly written offer could cost you your career. And if you don't think that's true, talk to some people that left the industry because they got a bad name for writing poor offers. You lose all your credibility, right? And we don't want that for you, we don't want that for the firm. And it's really easily avoided, if you think about it. And we're going to give you the tools today to make sure that you avoid it. And what happens when a happy customer gets the house of their dreams? Danny, what happens?
Sorry, I'm
still processing.
Yes.
They tell all their friends. And they go, man, she did an awesome job. You should work with her. You should work with Chris or Ashley or whomever, right? It's the best time to get referrals. We cover that in a different video, but we talk about there's 3 specific places where your opportunity for referrals are at the highest. Getting your offer accepted is in there, right? All right. So for all these reasons and more, you need to be an expert at this. That's why we always talk about sharpening our saw, right? So today we're going to cover the offer process. We're going to cover the offer strategy session. We'll cover basic offer writing, as well as techniques for winning within writing those offers. And then we'll finish with how you sell that to make sure it gets accepted. That sound like a pretty complete coverage? Right on, right on. So let's talk about the offer process, all right? So the steps for the offer process are always the same. We call the listing broker. Once we've talked to the listing broker, we have an offer strategy session with our client. At that point, we may insert a two-step approach. We'll talk about what that means, but it basically is when there's an offer review date, which we're seeing all the time, right? Then we write an offer using the writing winning offers mentality. Then we call the listing broker a second time. And if you're Janice, you call it fourth and fifth time, right? We were just talking about that yesterday. 2 calls is a minimum. I've sold thousands of houses. I cannot tell you how many times I got an offer, never heard from the agent, and his offer or her offer did not win. Once we get that info from the listing broker, we may have to revise our offer. Or at least we may gain new intelligence that at least prompts a conversation, right? If we revise, then we submit the offer, but we're very strategic about when we submit it, when it expires, all that. We're going to cover all this in great detail. In fact, I have a little handout here. I see people shooting pictures. If you would take one and pass it around. That's just a one-page overview of this. It includes a little checklist that you can use, so photocopy that to your heart's content. Use it until you feel like you got this system memorized, all right? I didn't print enough. It should be enough. There's like 15. All right? So let's talk about the call of the listing broker. Why do you think we're calling the listing broker in the first place? We want to build rapport. That's absolutely right. Right? Well, what's the fastest way to build rapport with somebody? Compliments and humor.
Okay, Joe.
There's a saying, and I think it might have been Zig Ziglar, but he said the most favorite word in the English language is any person's name, their own name. Right? That's why it's really powerful when you're in a networking event to be introduced to somebody and then say, oh, it's so nice to meet you, Elliot, and say their name back to them. It also cements it in your head, but now they are that much more likely to like you. Right? Did everyone get one of those checklists? I'm going to leave them in the middle in case new people show up. All right? Like Julian. All right. So we have 4 goals for this call to the listing broker, right? Number 1 is build rapport, get them to like you, right? If they like you, they're more likely to tell you more about the current situation of offers that they might have, right? Then we want to ask them, what terms are important to your client besides price? I'll even make a joke there too. I mean, obviously, I'm going to try and bring you $1 million offer, but besides that, what's important to your client? And they may say, nope, just price. And I'll go, really? Like, what about possession? Is it carte blanche, or would it benefit them to close sooner? Would it benefit them to close later? My clients are flexible and they really want this house. We're willing to do whatever benefits your clients the most. What did I just do there? I gave him an impression that I might be easy to work with. He hasn't even seen the offer yet, right? But he's thinking, oh, kind of like that. We can kind of drive the bus here. That's a good thing for the seller, for his client or her client, right? So we get those terms. In that part of the conversation, I'm also going to say, so Allison, my clients have kind of been burnt in this market, and they don't want to lose because they don't like losing, right? We want to submit an offer that has kind of a short fuse on it, but I don't want it to be a hardship for you or your client. So how short can I make the response time for you without dragging it out, right? Again, reinforcing that I'm pliable and easy to work with, but also that I'm going to keep it to a reasonable amount of time. She may say, my clients are in Europe, give me a week or whatever, right? But in most cases, she's going to say, oh, they're local, can you give me 24 hours or can you give me 48 hours? Whatever the answer is, if I'm uncomfortable with how long it is, I'm going to ignore her answer. I'm going to do what I think is best for my clients, all right? But I am going to, when I submit the offer, say, man, Allison, I really tried to get you 72 hours like you asked, but my clients just weren't comfortable with that. Just do what you can. Try and respond by the expiration if you can. If you can't, let me know. Right? So I just put pressure on you. I didn't ignore what you asked for, and in fact, I validated that I tried to get what you asked for, but I couldn't. But here's what I did. I'm hoping to work with you, right? I don't want to injure my rapport, but I also don't want my offer to be used to leverage up someone else's offer, because I lose in that scenario, right? I want it to be bang, bang, get this thing signed around.
So you have it expire, what, a day before the review date? Or?
I haven't even gotten to that yet. I'm talking about all offers in general. The expiration date defaults to 2 days. You should never default to anything. It should be very strategic. You should think about how long should it be. So in Scott's example, if you're the listing broker and you say, give me 24 hours, I'm giving you until 5 o'clock tomorrow. Not 9 o'clock, 5 o'clock, right? Or noon. I mean, today, 10 a.m. now, I can do noon. I can still be giving you what you asked for, and I'm keeping that downward pressure on getting you to respond. So I'm respectful, but I'm not just going to cave, okay? Item number 3 for the seller. Do you have any other offers? Who's comfortable asking that?
I ask it all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
If you're uncomfortable asking that, you need to rethink things. Scott even gets, I don't know, I think Elliot may have too, he's gotten the other offer emailed over to him. That's a complete violation of ethics by that broker, but he's charming, he built rapport, got them to like him, and he said, what's going to take to win? And they got tired of spelling it out and just said, here, I'll send you the offer. Right? If you were the agent that wrote that other offer, wouldn't you be pissed? Yeah. Right? So you got to ask, and then you got to be willing to ask again and maybe even a third time. So not all listing brokers are comfortable sharing information. And I'm okay with that. I have ways to persuade that might make you comfortable. Chris?
So how about they don't have offer, but they say I have.
They don't have offers, but they say,
Yeah, I have multiple. So
they say I have
Yeah.
an offer,
Yeah.
but they don't have. Oh, what do you do if they lie?
yeah.
Oh, okay. How do you know they're lying? I can't coach to something that
Okay.
hasn't happened, right? We're all adults. Most of us are professionals. Those that are willing to lie are not professionals, and usually aren't very good liars either. So I can tell when somebody's BSing me. And what do? I don't change my course. I follow my process, right? Now I know what kind of person you are, though. I can actually manipulate you more easily when I find out you're a liar, right? All I gotta do is stroke your ego and make you think you're getting what you want. You're gonna be like, ah, my lie worked. It's not true, right? So I'm gonna find out if you have any other offers, and then I'm gonna pump you for information on where they're at so that I can win, right? And it starts with a harmless, oh, that's awesome, Allison, congratulations. That is so cool that you have 3 offers. Where do I need to be in order for you and I to work together? Well, I can't tell you that. Right? Let's assume she says I can't tell you that because I got more objection handlers. But more often than not, she'll respond to that with, well, they're all at or below list, or one of them's over list. Right? Usually listing brokers, the majority of listing brokers will be somewhat transparent, but they won't give you specifics. Right? So you go, oh, okay, one over list, that helps me. Do I need to be over list by like 10 grand? 15? Right? Remember that game when you were a kid called Hotter and Colder or Warmer and Colder? You know, where's the little toy card? You're getting colder, colder, warmer, warmer, right? I'm playing that game with this agent, right? Oh, 10 grand over list isn't going to do it? Would 15 do it? Wow, you did a great job of marketing. You got something that was 20 grand over list? Oh, even more? Do you think I need to, would 30 do it? I'm just going to keep asking. You're either going to get tired of me asking and just say, look, it's 28 grand over. Or you're going to get to the point where you said, that's all I can tell you. I got a bunch of info though, didn't I? And I can go back to my client and say, I know it's somewhere north of 25, That's about where she got uncomfortable. So my gut tells us if we go 35 over, we're probably going to win by 5 grand. Or something like that, right? Couple objection handlers. Hey, I'm not asking you to do anything that you're uncomfortable doing. I'm just trying to, do a great job and win. Can you coach me? Right? If they start to go, well, I'm not comfortable with that question. Hey, I'm not asking you to do anything that would make you uncomfortable. I just would really like the chance to work with you and help my client win. Plus, it gets your client more money. You sure you can't give me just a little bit of insight? Okay, well, boom, I get some info. If they really react viscerally, like, Scott, your question is offensive, right?
Good. No.
That's going to happen probably less than 5% of the time, but it will happen. Don't be frightened by it. Don't feel like, oh, now I've ruined it. My chances for my client are over. None of that's true. The response is simply, hey, Scott, I'm sorry. I genuinely am not asking you to do anything unethical. I know that you have a fiduciary duty to your client to get them the most amount of money, and I'm just trying to help you fulfill that duty. What did I do there? I reminded them that he has a legal obligation. And I almost made it sound like he has an obligation to me to give me more info. Right? Any of you be uncomfortable saying that? Are all of you aware that you have a fiduciary duty to your client? Right? You raised your hand, Ashley. And I
Does the listing agent violate any regulations by disclose the offer's price and all the details?
just ethics. The agent that sent Scott the actual agreement, that's an MLS violation.
Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah. That's why I want to tread lightly, but be persistent, right? I want him to hear in the tone of my voice that I'm very respectful, I'm an honorable person, I'm really not trying to make you uncomfortable, but give me the info, right? I'm going to say it with a smile. And remember, this is after we joked and I complimented him for a while. Play the warmer colder game. Then, step number 4. The mission for the first call, there are 3 goals. There is only a 4th goal if there's a review date. Right? Review dates are very important because some sellers are committed to them and not going to sell it before the date. Other sellers are like, right offer comes along, whenever it comes along, I'm taking it. And I need to figure out which camp that seller sits in. Right? So I go, hey, I see that you're looking at offers next Tuesday. If my client gets drunk and wants to shower your client with money, could we convince you to accept an offer early? The best answer is try. Because now I know I'm going to do the 2-step that I mentioned earlier that I'll cover next. If he says, no, my client's really committed to the plan, we're determined to not go early, I have to try a little bit harder, right? What if someone more pushy than I am comes along and really sweeps your client off their feet? Would you cave then? And I'll use the word cave because I want it to be a little distasteful. Because what I want him to say is, no, doesn't matter how pushy they are, right? Because what that does is that he has now made a commitment verbally to me that he's going to try and honor. Try is the operative word though, right? Because the law requires he submit all offers within 24 hours. And if those offers expire in 12 hours, then seller could still say, yeah, I want to take that offer, right? So none of this guarantees that it won't get sold out from under you, but each step increases the likelihood that it's less likely to happen, right? Because then the powerful second offer comes in from somebody else. The seller says, man, that's a good offer. Don't you think we should just take it? And he says, no, I've been having conversations with other brokers. They all are really strong buyers, and I told them all, we're going to stay the course, so let's stay the course. A good agent knows that you're better off staying the course, because then I can leverage you all against each other. I can use highest and best. I can do lots of different things to get everyone to come up, right? But I take one early, none of that is going to be in play, right? I kind of skipped over. When they say, yeah, my client would consider that. Say, great, how much would it take? Right? Well, I've had this exact conversation. We talked about it. We said, we're going to go on the market for 500. We're hoping we can get 525. I think 525 would get it done. And you and I all know that 550 is actually where it's going to end up if it goes all the way to the review date. So 525 is a good deal. Right? Does that make sense?
I get them to reconfirm what they just told me.
On the number?
Yeah. So if I brought you an offer right now that was this, and this, you're going to accept or get it signed.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't want them to start playing it again after I do
Yeah.
it.
It's the same psychological maneuver that I used when I got them to say, no, we're going to stay to the plan. When you get them to say yes to your restatement, they are now more likely to fulfill that statement. Right? This is all just fundamental psychology and neuro-linguistic programming. We have some good training on that too. All right? If they're inclined to stick with their plan, get them to say it. We are sticking with our plan. That way they're more likely to actually stick with their plan. The two-step. You got it? All right. So the two-step is when there's a review date and we actually want to submit 2 offers. All right? It starts with an offer strategy session, which I'm going to cover that in the next section of this. But just know that we've talked to our clients about numbers, and now I'm going to tell them about a 2-step approach that we're going to use to try and win, if they want to. Right? This is the buyer's choice. I just had this whole sweep you off your feet conversation with the listing broker, but that doesn't guarantee the buyer is going to want to do it, right? So we have the offer strategy session, and I go, okay, Allison, now here's a technique that we've used very successfully. I just want to describe to you how it works so that you can decide if it's something you want to try and employ in our efforts to get this house, right? They have an offer review date for next Tuesday. An option for us is to submit them an offer today that expires long before the due date and try and beat out all the competition, because the competition is waiting for next Tuesday. If that works, we just won. If it doesn't work, then we submit a second offer before the review date and we compete as best we can amongst the competition, right? And I can tell you, I mean, this is not what I say to the customer, but I'll tell you, look at my YouTube channel. You'll see a video where I'm laughing because I just finished the inspection on a house that was, the review date hadn't even come yet, and we had already inspected because we got mutual days earlier. And it was actually this time of year because we got mutual an hour after the Super Bowl ended a couple of years ago. And then we inspected right away. And
actually, for the past 3 days, I experienced 3 occasions that happened.
Yeah.
Like, there is a house near my house, just went to market the day before yesterday. I showed yesterday around 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
In the afternoon, pending.
Gone.
It's not my client. My client did not like it. But
Did it have a review date too?
it did not. But
Yeah.
the one on Sunday, yes, there is a review date, but they decided to take offer sooner.
Have you guys all noticed that it says seller intends to review offers, if any, on January whatever,
Right.
may accept sooner?
Yeah.
May accept sooner is not a choice they made. It's boilerplate language. When you choose that review date line, it autofills those words because the Department of Licensing requires that offers be submitted within 24 hours. So whether they set a review date or not, there is no prohibition from someone submitting an offer that expires sooner, so they have to have that language in case they do decide to do that. right? So the two-step approach starts with writing a strong offer that presumes we are the only buyer. That's a really important distinction, because if I'm the only offer, I'm not going to use an escalator clause. Escalator clauses have no effect unless there's a second offer that triggers them and pushes them, right? So I have, in my sort of scenario with Allison, I have to say, now, in the first offer, we want to write as strong as you are comfortable writing. And we want to minimize contingencies. We want to give them every reason to say yes to that offer. So let's say in the offer strategy session, we decided that 550 was kind of her limit. Well, you're willing to go to 550 if there's a second offer to push you there. Would you consider going to 550 if there were no second offer? Most buyers will say no to that, because there's this inherent sort of drive that you get when you're competing that you would do something that you wouldn't otherwise do. Does that make sense? But I'm going to encourage her to go as close to 550 as she is comfortable going, because I know every dollar more increases the likelihood that the seller says yes to our offer, to the first offer. Does that make sense to everybody? So it's a clean offer. It goes straight to 545, let's say. If there's an inspection, that's a real weakness, right? Because if I'm the seller, I don't want to sell it early and have you inspect and then ask me for more money or terminate, right? I got a better chance of avoiding inspections altogether if I wait to the review date. So you really need to drive towards waiving inspection, or at least using some of the language that we'll cover in the writing winning offer as part of this training, right? So minimum contingencies, no escalator clause, make the offer price at or near your client's maximum straight away without escalating to it. I think you guys all get that. And then make it expire quickly, right? In my example, they're reviewing offers on Tuesday. Today is Wednesday, the week before. I'm making it expire like tomorrow, right? I already had the conversation with the listing broker about how long do you need to respond. So I'm going to make it expire quickly. And I'm going to call him. I'm going to charm him again in call number 2 and say, hey, I know you wanted to stick to your review date, but I couldn't stop Allison, man. She wanted to write. And she really was hoping that she can write it compelling enough that your client would consider accepting it early. So do what you can, please. Right? Submit the offer right away. Make it expire. Step number 2. This only happens if the first step failed, right? Step number 2 is really easy. I take the 545 offer that Allison was willing to go to straight, drop it back down to the list price, and then put an escalator in that goes to 550, right? I might go to 505 or something to communicate to the seller that we really, really want it. Even if there's no competition, we're willing to pay over asking, right? Pretty simple, right? That is a new page 1, because I got to add the 35E and the 35E. So it's 2 pages. The rest of the forms, I don't even have to recreate them. That should be popping questions into all your heads. Can you have an offer that your client signed page 1 and page 17 today, but signed pages 2 through 16 yesterday? Of course. It's just the last signature date that matters. I can have a client that signs 1 page a day if I want. It doesn't matter. Right? Now, by the looks, I'm guessing none of you had that question in your head, but I answered anyway.
How about offer expiration date? You're going to change that as well?
Yes, thank you for saying that. I forgot. Yes. So the offer expiration in step 1 was like 24 hours. On this one, it's the review date. Right? And I'm actually going to cover that in more detail. So we add the escalator, we start at or near the list price and escalate up to your buyer's maximum, and then we wait. We don't submit the offer until 1 hour before the offer review deadline. Right? Now, A lot of listings are going to say, we are going to review offers on February 4th. In my calls to the listing broker, I need to ask what time, right? Most listing brokers will have already thought through what time they're going to meet with their client, and they'll go, well, we're meeting at 5, so can you get it to me by 3? Sure. And then I'm going to submit it at 3 on the button, not a minute earlier. Or not, maybe a minute earlier, but not an hour earlier. Why is that?
It's too much time for more stuff to happen.
Because if that listing broker is Ed Lane or a hometown advisor agent, I'm going to use your offer to get more money out of the next guy, right? Because remember, those calls that you're making, hey, listing broker, well, how many offers you have, what are they at? I'm getting those calls too, right? So don't let your offer be the catalyst for someone else to win. Make sense?
Yep.
I've told this story before, but I want it on this video. We had I had a listing that was $700,000, had an offer review date, and the offer review date came, and I only got one offer, and it was for $680. It was under the asking price. This was like 2 years ago, so the market was just starting to heat up. Offer review dates were an aggressive maneuver, but we thought we had priced it well and it was going to work. It didn't work. We got $680. If that offer of $680 had expired on the offer date, my client would have accepted it, but it didn't. They made their offer expire the Friday, which was 3 days later. Was Tuesday. On Wednesday, I got another offer from an agent who wasn't paying attention to the review date and just submitted it the day after, which that allowed me to go back to both buyers. And of course, when I do that, I don't say both buyers, I say all buyers. Hey, the seller has asked that I go back to all buyers and ask for your highest and best by Friday at 5 p.m. The second offer that was at $700 was at asking price. Didn't respond to highest and best. The $680 offer, moved it to $731 and removed the escalator. So you had an escalator, I think, at like to $710. $680 offer, $710 escalator, but no second offer to trigger it, right? Removes the escalator, goes to $731. My client gets $51,000 extra dollars because that agent was too stupid to make their offer expire on the review date. Don't you make that mistake, okay?
Would there be any reason to leave the escalator in, or when they say highest and best, you kind of just put it as one and done?
If I'm the buyer's broker, my goal is to convince them to take the escalator out. If you are the listing broker and you have 5 offers, on average, 2 or 3 of them will remove their escalators. The other 2 will leave them in, which is fine.
You don't always put a house on set up review date, right? Not necessarily.
You don't always, correct. And right now the market's starting to shift again, and so you're seeing fewer and fewer of them. It's still the majority, but it used to be like 90% of houses. Now it's maybe 60, something like that. It's just my sense. All right, so we submit, and we make it expire that same day. And remember, the agreement's default language is if I put a date on it, it expires at 9 p.m. Well, if you're going to review at 3 p.m., I'm going to make it expire sooner than that. I might give you, 6 or 7 p.m., but I'm not going to give you till 9 because I'm really paranoid that you're going to use me and leverage my offer to get more money out of someone else. Make sense? All right? In either approach, step 1 or step 2, you want to use the writing winning offers techniques that we're going to cover today and that hopefully many of you have grown to be familiar with. Yes, Ash?
So you have step 1, step 2. What if the listing agent come back and says, okay, right now I have multiple offers, just like what you did.
Like in between they have multiples?
And after the due date, and the listing agent say, okay, I got multiple offers. Right now I give you a chance to bid.
Yeah.
Give you your best and highest.
Yeah.
And that, should we
That's step 3.
Include that step 3, yeah.
Yeah.
So at that time, you say better do not include the escalator clause, right? Just
Well,
give the
if he has
straightforward
multiple
price.
offers,
Yeah,
the escalator can stay in. The downside of leaving the escalator in, though, is that you only are beating other offers by a certain increment. So remember I said earlier, if it was my buyer, I would try and convince them to remove it. Here's how I do that. I'd go, Ashley, we're now in a multiple offer situation. We tried to avoid it by doing that quick offer, but it didn't work. Now we're in a multiple offer situation. Here's something I want you to think about. We've written our offer as strong as we could. We included an escalator so that if we weren't the highest, our offer would go up. A way to strengthen our offer would be to remove the escalator and just go straight to that number. Here's why I want you to at least think about it. The way it's written right now is we're only going to beat other offers by $2,500. The chances that the second highest offer is $547,500 and thus pushes us to our maximum of $550 is pretty low, right? And one thing I would want you to think about is, do you want to lose the house over $2,500, right? So a way to sort of make it a little bit stronger without increasing your risk, right? Because you already said you'd go to $550, is just go straight to $550. That sends a message to the seller that we're convicted, right? We're in, we're all in, right? At the same time, without you spending another penny than what you'd already said you were comfortable spending.
And also sometimes if the listing agent really wants your number and your offer, let's say if you are a cash buyer, he may call you again to ask you, you do not change your offer and, remove the escalator. And my client asked us to remove everything give us the highest and best. So you have to.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely an element of, you want that rapport, so you get that phone call, right? But you also don't want to betray the confidence they've placed in you, which is, hey, Ashley, I'm kind of overstepping a little bit to coach you and help you to win. Don't ignore my advice, right? That would be offensive to me. They won't say that, but if you did ignore my advice, I'd be like, yeah, she's out. She's not smart enough to do what I coached her to do. This one is or whatever, right?
Yeah, and also like the same thing. My client, I coach my client, but he is not ready to move at the end. And afterwards, the listing agent called me and said, you could win because I coached you, but you did not follow my suggestion. I said, it's not me, it's my client.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a really important conversation because she's going to sell a house with that agent again at some point in the future, and she doesn't want him to think Janice ignored me. He needs to hear that it was Janice's client that got the advice and chose to ignore it. So that's worthwhile. It sucks, right? You want to win, but you can't always, your client, it's ultimately their choice. So, right? So then you've written that offer with the writing winning offers techniques, and you send it to your client for signature. Make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. Now I've got a signed offer. It's time to just email it in, right? Nope. Time to call a listing broker again. Because at a minimum, 6 or 8 hours have probably gone by. Well, I had the offer strategy session, we looked at comps, we just talked about how we wanted to structure our offer, I wrote the offer, I sent it over for Authentisign or whatever tool I used. Now I got it back. Time has gone by. So I'm going to call a listing broker again and bond more. Hey, great news, Allison. I actually was able to get him to write. We put pen to paper, and I'm getting ready to send it over to you right now. Hey, that's great. In the last blank hours, or since we talked yesterday, have you gotten any more offers? There is a definite risk of that, right? We have, what did we find out about condos? We have 10 days of inventory, right? Hey, Allison, I know we just talked, but did you get any new ones? Because that's the kind of market we're in. She'll say, no, nothing new, perfect, right? Or she may say, yeah, actually I got 3 more, and now the highest is blank. Especially if she got comfortable with being pretty transparent with me in call number 1, she's going to cut right to the chase and call number 2 if she got new offers, right? If she's coy about it, all I'm going to say is, well, you kind of coached me on a target in the earlier call. Has the target moved? Yeah, it did. Or no, it didn't, right? If it did, then I can dig into the warmer, colder game again, right? Whatever I have to do to get intel that I can then go back to my buyer with, man, it's like, remember Charlie Brown and Lucy, when Charlie would kick field goals and Lucy would hold the ball and she'd move the ball out of the way right before he kicked? They moved the ball on us, client, right?
Hated that girl.
Really important last point to make to the agent. All right, we're going to get that sent over to you. Hey, would you mind doing me a favor? If there's anything about my offer that's going to prevent me from winning, do you think you could give me a call? Because I might be able to fix it. We've tried to put it in a condition that meets every one of your clients' needs, but you know these things. They're 22 pages long. If there's something I missed, there's a good chance my client will be happy to fix it. Would you mind reaching out to me? I had a deal, it was probably August, September, somewhere in there. My phone rang, it was the listing broker's number, I recognized it. Hey Joe, are you calling me with good news? Well, this isn't Sally. No, this is Ed Lane. Oh, I'm sorry, I was trying to call another broker. Oh, were you calling her to break her heart because my offer won? Right? We'd already built rapport, he already knew we had a sense of humor thing going, so I, hey, that poor Sally, right? He goes, no, actually, I was calling to let her know she won. Really? She beat my offer of X? My offer was cash. All cash, closing in 10 days. Yeah. By how much? 50 grand. If my client will come up 50 grand and still be cash, do you think your client would change their mind? Yeah, I think they might. Can you just wait 2 minutes and let me make a phone call? It was a fluke that I got that call. It was a wrong number. But that gave me a chance to revise my offer upwards. I wish that story ended with, and our offer got accepted, but it didn't. The buyer still took the other offer because of their offer love letter. You know what that is? We're going to cover that too. Everything in this video and this training is little things that add up to you winning. Why would you leave any one of them out, right? You should do everything in this training because it makes your offer easier to say yes to. Right? After I talk to them and I find out if there are other offers, any changes in where we need to be, then I got to go back to my client and discuss again, right?
Just a quick question about the
Yes,
second one. Find out the offer amounts of the new offers, if any. Is it legal for the listing broker to tell you the exact number of other offers?
Yeah.
It is.
It's not a matter of legality, it's a matter of ethics. It's unethical for them to tell you.
Yeah, but it's not illegal.
It's not illegal.
Technically, he's getting more money for his seller when he gives you that because you got to beat it. So
Yeah.
Last time when I was buying the house, there was a little story. The house was on the market, but was listed, but not open house yet.
Yeah.
And when I was there to take a first look, there was already a Saudi Arabian guy sending his inspection people there. And then I was talking with the listing agent without my broker, asking, hey, I really want this house. Tell me the price. He said, I can't. He said, tell me the goddamn price. And he's like, okay, this is the price.
Yeah.
And that price was already $30,000, well, $300,000 more than
300 over list?
over the listing price, because that was a strategy they used.
Yeah.
They put the house at a lower price to the market
Yeah.
to attract more people.
Yeah.
But they didn't set up a review date.
Yeah.
So by taking that,
I'm going to hijack you because I got a lot more slides, and your anecdote is just the way the market is right now. So I'm going to keep going if you don't mind.
All right.
Thanks, York.
Yep.
I'm moving the slide. If you wanted a picture, hopefully you already got it. Managing the timing, right? I have to be strategic about when I send it in and when it expires. I think I've covered that enough, right? but we'll just cover it in brief so you can take a picture of the slide, right? If it's got an offer review date, you're going to submit 1 hour before and make it expire on the same day. If there is no offer review date, you're going to submit it right away and just make it as short as you can. And remember, you want to portray to the listing broker that I don't want to create a hardship for you or your client. Tell me how much time you need. And then you have to gauge whether that time frame would put your client at risk or whether it seems reasonable and that's no problem at all. Right? And also listen to make sure you're not getting worked. Right? Worked would mean, yeah, my client's really hard to reach, so give us a week. That's BS. I have signed deals on my phone out in the middle of Lake Washington. We live in an era where unavailable doesn't exist unless you're in remote parts of third world countries, right? If they ask for something that you don't want to agree to, don't agree to it, right? As much as I said I don't want to put you in a hardship, I'd still rather have you have a hardship than me lose, right? Or have my offer used to help someone else win. All right, let's dig into the offer strategy session. Now remember, this is the one-on-one meeting with your client to help coach them on what the property is worth and what their offer amount should be. And it's designed to help them not be a lowball artist. Who's had a lowball artist before? Right? If your client is a lowball artist, let them be a lowball artist. Try this, but let them write a lowball offer. Right? Getting them to write the first offer is still most valuable, even if it's nowhere near a level that would be accepted. Let him write, let him get his teeth kicked in by the market. Right? Teeth kicked in means we didn't get selected. I had a conversation with the listing broker to find out that there were 7 offers. We were 7th, and we were 120 grand below the highest offer. And I'm going to share every bit of that information with my client so that the next offer is stronger. Make sense? Because then it's not me being the bad guy, right? I never want to say, dude, you're a lowball artist. You're wasting my time and yours. I would never say that. But I will let him get his teeth kicked in and then say, man, the market's teaching both of us a lesson. This isn't the market to come in way undervalued when the home's brand new on the market, right? All right, so what's the point of the offer strategy session? We still don't want our clients to overpay, right? We defined that earlier as being a number that they would regret. We don't want them to be lowball, we want to educate them on the market, and we want them to write. Really, this should be in reverse order, because writing is the #1 thing, especially if they haven't written yet. All right? So how do we do that? Well, we use the color picture CMA tour process. How many of you have seen that video? Only a few. I'm going to send out a link to it because I'm not going to cover it in great detail on this video. But I can tell you what it does, right? We pull comps, we do a CMA, and then we use the photos of those listings and we play a game. We go, hey York, we're going to play a little game, right? This game's going to help you see what the true market value of this house is. All right, I'm going to show you some houses. I just want you to guess what they sold for. And then I slide the first set of photos across to you. I make you guess. And I write on it what you guessed, and then I turn it over because on the back I've written what it actually sold for, and you go, oh, wow, that sold for more than I guessed. We do that 4 to 6 times. By the time we finish that game, he's now dialed in on what market values are. And the psychology behind it is, when we first sat down, before you looked at the first house, your hope was to buy this house for cheap. And your hope for that was high, right? It was strong. Your human nature also has a drive to win competitions of any kind. Game shows, all kinds of stuff, right? Well, when you guessed on the first house, it injured your perception that you're going to be able to steal that house from the seller. It also kind of spiked you that you got it wrong, and so your desire to win grew. And then you look at the next house and it injures it even more that you're not going to get it for a steal, and now you're getting better at predicting what those houses are selling for. By the end, you're realistic on value. Make sense? Very effective, awesome video in the Foundation for Success section of the training, right? Now I've taught you what market value is. Is that what the house is going to sell for? No, there's no guarantee of that, right? It's just a number. And with limited inventory and lots of buyers, most houses are selling for more. On average, in our MLS, houses are selling for 100.4% of the asking price. So that means on average, every house is selling for more than what they listed for, right? Then we're going to talk about emotional premium. So I'm going to say, okay, York, now we've figured out what this house is worth. The thing is, it's worth more to some people than it is to others. And we call that difference an emotional premium. And the reason we call it that is because usually the reason it's worth more to someone is it's in the right school district, it's close to their relatives that live in the neighborhood or whatever, it's a short commute, there's parks, whatever it is, it's like it's a better fit for you than it might be for someone else, right? We have to decide, well, what is that emotional premium to you, right? You might say, it's not worth anything more than the asking price. That's okay. We're going to submit an offer and you may get your teeth kicked in, right? You also might be the only offer and win. We're going to try, right? But most buyers, because they know, did you get it, Jay?
I never know if you're on the last line. So.
Yeah.
Will the slides be available for us?
Would you like them to be?
Sure.
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
I can send them out. That would spare you having to shoot photos every time, right?
Thank you.
Right, perfect house, close to family. We never say that it might be worth more to you than to me, right? Why do you think that is? It's just switching two words. It's better for me to say it might be worth more to me than to you. Why do you think that is?
You're devaluing their opinion?
I'm increasing fear.
Oh.
The power of fear, right? Because when I imply that in this sentence, I am the me is the rest of the buyers, right? It could be worth more to me than to you, just as an example. All I've done there subconsciously is gone, you better step up then, right, if you want to beat me, right? You want to already be feeling a risk of loss. Remind them on average homes are selling over the asking price, and some of them well over the asking price, like York's example, right? And then have them assign a number. If they're financed, that number could be a function of what they qualify for too, right? We're looking at a $500,000 house and I'm only pre-approved at $550. Guess my emotional premium stops at $550, right? I might also say, I don't want to go any more than $525. Who knows, right? Whatever we decide on, that's when I write it up. York.
Yes, question. So my listing broker, well, my buyer broker told me, you better buy it now, otherwise there will be more cash offer coming in and beat you. So I end up paying $50,000 more than my original, price. Do you think that counts as emotional premium?
Yeah, you made that decision emotionally. Fear was the emotion.
And also what he said.
Not true at all.
You better get it down now, otherwise there will be more cash offers coming in.
Yeah, that's not true.
Not necessarily true.
So your broker lied to you.
Okay.
He manipulated.
Don't look at me. I
Right?
was
No.
not.
And it's only because of the way he said it. He might have said it differently, which might make it more true. It's, you should buy now and be aggressive because cash offers don't have to spend as much as finance offers, right?
Correct.
Because to a seller, I'll take less money if it's cash because it's a sure thing. I want more money if I'm going to take on a little risk that you may not be able to close, right? When he said, buy it now because later more cash offers are coming, that's not true. They all show up on the first day too, right? It's uncommon for a home to sell down the road for the asking price.
He made such comment based upon the open house fact. We paid the $50,000 to ask him to take the
Yeah,
house
that's,
off the.
you're just doing the two-step.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with the open house or anything.
No.
It's just a strategy.
He used fear,
Uh-huh.
and I'm not criticizing him.
Mhm.
That description probably is true, because the cash offers were waiting for the review date.
Right.
You be aggressive now. We covered that
Yeah.
for 20 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
What I
Right?
thought was to pay the $50,000 to ask the listing agent to take it off the market, so I can
We're
get
saying,
guarantee.
you don't even have a license yet, so I'm not gonna re-explain
Okay.
it for this video.
Uh-huh.
I will explain it in great detail, but everyone else in the room gets it, all right? So I don't mean to make you
All
feel that you don't know, but you asked the same question 3 times, so I'm
Okay.
moving on.
All right.
And because we're an hour into this and I'm probably only halfway through. Basic offer writing, all right? So this is really fundamental for those of you that are not licensed, right, or newly licensed, all right? First step, understand transaction desk. There's great videos, there's classes through the MLS that are really good. Jay can actually give you feedback on some of the classes. Step 2, use the right forms. We're going to cover forms right now, right? Start, though, by looking at the agent remarks. There's going to be instructions in most of those on where to look for extra information or instructions that the seller is expecting. It's oftentimes in the supplements, right? In Success Hours this morning, we looked at a set of offer instructions that were in the supplements. That's the attachments, if you're not familiar with that phrase, right? Understand the age of the home, because that could affect your addenda, right? Pay attention to whether it's a foreclosure or a short sale. That can affect your addenda. Pay attention to the utilities. That can affect your addenda, right? Every offer is going to start with a purchase and sale agreement, right? In our MLS, the 3 most common are 21 for single families, 28 for condos, 25 for vacant land. The note about townhomes is a lot of townhomes actually technically are condos. You have to click on the parcel number to look at the legal description to see if the word condominium is in the legal description. If it is, then you're going to use Form 28. If it's not, then you're going to use Form 21. And I've seen listing brokers get it wrong. Like I've looked at listings where it said, make sure you use Form 28, and then you look and it's not a condo and that's not true. You have a
A
question?
lot of them are listed both, the residential and condo, so.
Right.
if
That's
you-
smart.
Right, to
Because if
track everything, but.
If I don't know, or I should say, if the average broker doesn't know that they could be condos, they could be houses, your buyer might want a townhome and you might only be looking at single families. So I'd better put it in there, even though mine is a condo, right? Well, I should also put it in condo. But in the remarks, I'd say use Form 28.
Okay. Plus, you should look at the legal, even if you're looking at the residential listing with a different number,
Yep.
and then the legal will tell you what
I
it is.
check the legal even if you, let's say it's your listing and you said use Form 28, I'm still going to check the legal to see if you're right. Because all the data that's in a listing is put in by agents.
Right.
Agents are not perfect, right? Every offer, if financed, is going to have Form 22A, right? If you don't want to make your offer subject to financing, contingent on financing, but you are using a mortgage, then you have to add Form 22AEF and remove Form 22A. Absent a 22A, the purchase and sale agreement actually explicitly says that it's a cash offer. It says this purchase price will be paid in cash unless otherwise referenced in this agreement. Well, 22A is that reference. So if you leave that out, it's cash. And so I can buy something with a mortgage and not make it contingent on my getting that mortgage if I'm really trying to be aggressive. I don't recommend this, by the way. If I do that, I have to disclose that I'm using a mortgage, and that's the form you use. Does that make sense?
Okay, so together, 22A and EF.
One
Not
or
together,
the other.
One or the other.
Yep, not together.
We want refinancing.
All offers also should have 22D. The way you want to think about 22D is all of those paragraphs really are designed to fill in gaps or risk from the purchase and sale. Like square footage is believed to be accurate, but buyer did verify to their own satisfaction. That's really important because the buyers can have a history of suing people when the square footage is wrong, right? There's other things in there as well. You're going to check always, unless it's vacant land, you won't check, hey, you got to leave it clean, right? But typically you're going to check paragraphs 1, 3, 4, and 5. Paragraph 8 if it's in an HOA. Paragraph 11 if you're providing a warranty, which we do on all of our VIP buyers, right? And box 12 is a blank box. You can use that to say, hey, we want you to leave the chandelier. If you're doing VIP buyer, this is where you put the closing cost definition so that we can get paid 4%. Right? You also want to use 22E on all offers. This is the FIRPTA disclosure. FIRPTA is the Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act. And what it says is, if the seller is a foreign national and leaves and doesn't pay his taxes and flees the country, the IRS can actually come after the buyer because the house can't leave, right? So they know where to find somebody and they will chase the buyer. So you want to have a 22E in there which forces the seller to disclose whether they are or they aren't. And it also instructs escrow to collect those taxes so that you don't have to worry about it, your client. Does that make sense to everybody? It's kind of a scary thing, and it's a really expensive thing if mishandled. Okay? Remember, on that form, your client doesn't actually sign it. The buyer doesn't sign it unless the seller says, yes, I am a foreign national. Right?
Don't check the box for them if they don't have it.
22J, if the home was built prior to 1978, not during 78, but prior to. Right? 22K, if you want to have escrow handle the transfer of utilities. And Form 35. In every offer, you should have Form 35. Now, hopefully you're wondering, well, what if I don't want an inspection contingency? Then you should check the box that says waived. If you read that box, we're actually going to look at it here in a minute, it says buyer is deciding on their own without the advice or encouragement of the broker to waive their inspection and accepts all liability. Whew. That's good for me, right? I want them to explicitly state that so that they can't come back later and say, well, Scott told me not to inspect or I'd lose and now I got this money pit, I'm coming after you, right? Waiving is better than leaving out. Now, some offers are going to include these addenda, and it depends on whether they have these things, right? If it has a septic system, there's a 22S. There are 3, I think, county-specific septic addenda in the MLS. So just go and look. I think it's Pierce, Thurston, and Snohomish, or something like that. Yeah. So just look. 22B or Q, those are the contingent on the sale of another house forms. One is for one where it's not yet on the market. The other is for one that it is on the market and is actually in escrow. That would not, obviously not apply to everybody. 22R is the well addendum. And I don't know why I didn't type well addendum there. Shoot. Now I think that's the well addendum.
Let me look at the 22R real quick.
Yeah, look that up. We do 35F, feasibility. The way you want to think about feasibility is...
Actually, you're right.
22R is, well, what's 22W?
Noise disclosure?
Oh, so forget 22W.
Island
Can
County.
you tell I was doing this late last night?
It was Island County noise disclosure.
All right, so 35F would be a feasibility. I can use that to do an inspection if I want. I actually will use that anytime I'm doing a longer period of due diligence. It's mostly used for like investigating questions with the city if I want to improve the property or something like that. All right, there's others. If you want to understand all these forms as well as I do, go to Agent Resources in V4. Go to the section called All About Forms, and you will find, not every, but probably the top 30 forms. And when you get down into numbers 25 through 30, most of you will never use those, but I covered the everyday stuff, the commonly used stuff, and a few of the might come up stuff. If you need coaching on a form that's not in there, bring it up in success hours. I'll cover it in great detail, and I'll record it, and we'll add it to the library. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Are those the same forms for a listing?
Down here lower are the listing forms.
Okay.
Yeah, I covered everything for buyers and sellers. Yeah, so the listing form, the listing input form, Form 7B, Form 7N, they're all, this is really good stuff. You should check it out. Ashley.
Question. So if the buyer's agent is using a kind of form that created by their own company,
Yeah.
And it's the perfect form.
The buyer's agent?
Yeah, the buyer's agent.
You mean the listing agent?
I'm the listing agent.
Oh.
She is the buyer's agent.
Okay.
And I saw she's using a kind of form that created by their own company, and it's very good as a buyer's agent to use those kind of forms. Can I use their company's forms next time when I'm making? No.
No, but if you love that form, send
We can create
it to me.
by
I can
ourselves,
create
right?
one. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, writing winning offers. So now you know what all the forms are. This is how you should fill them out to make sure that you get your offer accepted. And not all offers are created equal, right? And what's really crazy is you don't have to be the highest offer to win every time. Has anybody in the room had their offer accepted when you knew you were not the highest? Or is it just me and Adrian? Right? Last year it happened 36 times. And most buyers and agents would assume you got to be the highest to win. Not true. If you follow this process and you've built rapport on multiple occasions with that agent, winning isn't always a function of price, right? Why do you think that is? Well, they know that we're going to close and close on time, right? We demonstrate professionalism, character, competence, all those things, right? We ask what's important to their client. That's how we get our offers accepted. Yeah, price is important, but sellers have a lot more anxieties than just how much am I going to get, especially in this climate, right? The one thing they are confident about in this climate is that they're going to get a good price. But it's the timing of the move, and oh man, do I have to move twice, and yada yada yada. I can answer all those problems for them and make my offer more attractive, and that's worth money, right? By that I mean they'll accept my offer even if it's not the highest if it makes their life easier. We care enough to build rapport and bond with the listing broker, and then guess what happens when they have 5 offers? I have never spread multiple offers in front of a seller and not had them ask me, what do you think? Even the ones that had a very strong opinion about the offer that they thought they liked still said, what do you think? Or do you agree with me? They want your opinion, right? You're the expert. And if I've talked to Janice 4 or 5 times in the process and the offers are all in the vicinity of each other, I'm going to advocate for her because I like her. She's demonstrated that she's good at controlling her client, which means she's going to be able to land the ship. That's a good thing for my client, right? If I can look my client in the eye and say, this offer right here, written by Janice, I believe is the most likely to actually successfully close and close on time. That is powerful to the seller, right? That puts fear across the other 4 offers, and they go, okay, I agree with you. Right? They will, most of the time, they will follow your advice, and that's why we invest so much time building rapport with that listing broker. Right? We follow a consistent and predictable process that includes a minimum of 2 phone calls before we even submit. We include terms that make our offer stronger than others without even increasing risk for our clients. How do you do that? We're going to cover that, all right? We use this. Oh.
Yeah.
I'm sending this out. You don't have to keep
I
shooting.
still want to take it.
Every slide, it's like 7 cameras going. All right. Purchase and sale, right? Easy enough? Be smart about your expiration date. I've covered that enough, I believe. Does anyone want me to restate it? No, you get it. Don't let your offer exploit or be exploited. The names. Can't tell you how many times we have to do addenda to fix the names. Be professional. Look at who owns it. How often have you seen undisclosed in the listing? That doesn't mean you can just put undisclosed in here. If you do, that means you're going to write a new addendum. Go to the public records and see that it's, you know, Bill Gates, whoever's name they wanted to hide. Right? Appliances. The listing has a list of appliances. Your list should match it. If it doesn't match, it had better be for a specific reason, a strategy. Like they left the washer and dryer out of the listing, but my clients want them, therefore we're going to ask for them. Janice had a story just 2 days ago about how they asked for them and the listing broker didn't even notice. And when they closed, the washer and dryer were gone, right? Janice got to call and say, look at your agreement and bring them back. And they did, right? So be strategic. Every part of this agreement should be thought through. The comment I made yesterday to somebody, I apologize for not remembering who it was use the tab button when you're filling out these forms. It forces you to move and advance through every field, which causes your brain to go, okay, do I need this? Should I check the box? Nope, move on, next one, next one. You don't miss anything that way, right? Default. It is always forfeiture of earnest money. Remedies should scare the crap out of you and your client, because that means the seller could sue you. Like if I went to sell my house to Jay, and then she couldn't close or bailed or changed her mind or whatever and didn't close, and I now lost out on a house that I wrote a contingent offer on, I could cry emotional duress and sue her for millions, right? It's the kind of country we live in that regard. But not if she checked that box. I have pre-agreed that liquidated damages will be limited to the earnest money. Make sense? Charges and assessments due before closing. Due are levied before but due after. This is a real bugaboo because it's an unknown to a lot of people. But here's sort of the approach you should use. If it's a house that is not in a development and it's over 10 years old, you can pretty comfortably check assumed by buyer and not have any risk of any levies or assessments, right? Why is that? Well, in King County, if I build a house and connect it to the sewer, there's a sewer capacity charge that carries on for 10 years. That's how the builders avoid paying the 15 grand and making the buyers pay for it. Does that make sense? You're paying for it right now in your new place, right? May.
It's 10 years or 15 years? 15.
15 years.
Oh.
I said 10, you're right, it's 15. It's a payment plan, right? So if the house is 15 years old or younger, and in King County, there's a good chance there's a balance owing on that sewer capacity charge, and that would transfer to the buyer if I check that box. So on that home, I'm going to say prepaid by seller. But understand that prepaid by seller is a weakness in my offer. If I'm trying to write winning offers, I might want to research. I could call escrow. Hey, is there a balance on the sewer capacity charge? If it's like $500, do I want to lose a house over 500 bucks? Probably not. Right? FERPTA. Leave that blank. Unless the listing includes in the supplements a 22E that tells you that they are or are not a foreign national. If you leave it blank, the MLS actually modified this agreement to say, if you leave it blank and then the seller checks the box, that's not considered a counter, and the mutual date doesn't have to be, doesn't change. That's the mutual date, right? It wouldn't require your initial. That's unusual. Everywhere else, if they altered it, you'd have to initial it, right? Does that make sense?
Is the tax rate 10% of the FERTA? 10%, isn't it?
It depends on the seller's
Okay.
situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
15%?
It's also long-term versus short-term, right? You're the CPA, so feel free to be on the video.
I'm not the CPA, okay?
All right. Earnest money. When's earnest money due?
Within 3
2
days.
days.
2 days after you
2 days?
2 days. It used to be 3 days, so if you're not familiar with this language, you should read it. Buyer shall deliver earnest money within 2 days. Deliver could be escrow or could be you. If they deliver it to you, you then have 3 more days to deliver it. So you can have a total of 5, but it depends on when they delivered it to you. So here's how you want to think about it. To never be in hot water with me on quality control audits, deliver it within 2 days. If you deliver it on days 3, 4, or 5, have a Form 89 that says you received the earnest money on day 2, and then you don't need anything signed by buyer and seller, it's just signed by you. That's the easiest. If it's delivered after day 5, now you need a Form 34 that says buyer and seller acknowledge it was delivered late and both agree to proceed to escrow or to closing. That's critical because once earnest money is late, the contract is voidable. You've breached the contract. As the buyer, the seller can get out of it, and in a hot market like this, don't put yourself at risk like that. UBO actually used that to take a higher offer because the buyer's broker was nonchalant about delivery of earnest money, and she came in here kind of nervous, and I'm like, here's what you do. You send him a termination, and you send them a signed around agreement, and now they are your buyer. You think that conversation was awkward, right? So, paragraph W, right? Oops. Paragraph W is a blanket 10-day window for the buyer to analyze the listing and see if there is any material difference in the listing. Material could just be a typo. Even though a typo isn't material, what you typographically erred on could be. If I put it had 3 bedrooms and it doesn't, that's material, right? So a way to be aggressive as a buyer's broker, strike it, right? I'm doing 2 things when I do that. The first, I'm probably educating the listing broker that that paragraph even exists. Because how many brokers do you think actually read these forms, start to end? Should be every one of you. If you're a professional, never ask anyone to sign anything that you yourself have not read. Because we all know they're not reading it either, right? So you should read it. But back to this context, right? I just demonstrated character and confidence to that listing broker by drawing their attention to a clause that they probably didn't even know existed. And I'm demonstrating that we are aggressive and we are not going anywhere. We're not looking for a cheap out, which is what this would be. Now, why is this powerful without a lot of risk? Well, number 1, there aren't usually a lot of typos in the listings, right? Number 2, if I'm doing inspections or any of these other contingencies, I mean, think of how many offers you've written without even realizing you had this 10-day thing, right? You had other reasons that you were going to be able to do due diligence and get out of the deal, and you didn't need this. So striking it's not a big loss, right? That makes sense? All right. This is an actual deal, all right? We wrote an offer on August 21st. Then in a later addendum, where we agreed to a new price, the following is part of the purchase and sale agreement dated September 11th. That's the date that the addendum was written. That's not what the sentence says, is it? The following is part of the purchase and sale agreement dated August 21st, right? If I were an attorney, I could void this contract. Don't put yourself in that position. What should that date say?
August 21st.
Right. August 21st. This would feel like rocket science, doesn't it? Not so much. It's attention to detail, though, and that's not a strength for everybody. All right, writing winning offers for Form 22A. 22A is probably the least understood addendum in our library of addenda, right? Number 1, make this first paragraph accurate. The reason it has to be accurate is because if you change things, you can accidentally waive financing. And think of how many deals get done or terminated under the financing contingency at the very end because the financing is still in force, but you could accidentally waive it. That should scare the crap out of you, right? So how do you accidentally waive it? Well, it's not really by accident, because you overtly went out and changed your loan product, right? Adrian is smart enough and experienced enough to know that, hey man, I know we disclosed this was an FHA deal. I can't get it approved FHA, but I can conventionally. But he's not going to issue an updated pre-approval letter because he knows that you got to notify the seller. If I notify the seller, then I'm not waiving my financing. But if I just switch, it's gone, right? So if buyer fails to make application for financing within the agreed upon time frame, that's this window, right? Or changes the type of loan at any time without the seller's prior written consent. So there's lots of scenarios where Adrian gives me a pre-approval on August 1st. Something changes, the borrower went out and bought a motorcycle and now his debt to income changes or whatever, and he goes, I gotta switch to another product. And he issues a new pre-approval on August 8th, and I send a notice of change to the seller on August 9th with a pre-approval letter dated August 8th. What, if it's a good listing broker, what's he gonna do? Thanks for waiving your financing. Well, what do you mean? I'm sending you the notice. Yeah, but you changed yesterday. Look at your pre-approval letter, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That should scare the crap out of you. Another way to waive it is to change the lender without the seller's prior written consent after the 5 days, if it's 5 days, right? So we've all had clients where Adrian's doing the pre-approval, but they've got some loyalty to East West Bank or whomever, right? And they just want to use them. Well, pay attention to what you submitted, what pre-approval letter you included with your offer. It doesn't mean they can't use that other lender, but it does mean I got to get prior written consent. Janice.
Good question. If some buyers, initially they say, oh, we want to get a mortgage to make the payment, but later they
Switch to
change.
cash.
Yeah, so what should we do? Do we need to
Notify the
anything?
seller. Yeah.
We still need to notify.
Yeah, you got to notify them.
You have a problem taking all cash now?
No, and they won't.
No, I mean, I was just facetious comment.
But you also
Yeah, I don't
you
know.
you don't need a financing contingency any longer either.
Like if they would like to put more for down payment, do we need to notice them
Yep.
with the same buyer, with the same lender?
Yeah.
Still need to advise them.
Yeah,
What
you're
form-
changing the type of loan without seller's prior written consent.
So what form should we use to advise the seller?
22AN,
So would,
which I think I have in here. I'll get to it.
so would it be safe if any changes, we just notify them?
Yeah, that's what I would do. Because the last thing you need is an argument on whether you have a financing contingency still in force or not. And I've done this probably, I don't know, probably 10 times over the last several years, where I recognized when they waived it, I shot them an email to confirm that they got Adrian's pre-approval on the 7th or whatever, like to lock in that they have messed up. And I go, okay, well, keep us posted on closing. And I just wait. Because if it closes, I don't care. But if they go, oh man, we're not gonna be able to close, we're gonna have to terminate under our financing, you don't have financing any longer. What do you mean? It's always a shock, right? 10 times. They either proceeded and closed because they were making up the reason they weren't gonna be able to close, or we kept their earnest money. Okay? So here's seller's request for loan information. You should use the default time frame for that. All it is the seller has a right to ask how it's going, right? Seller's right to terminate. This you should be more strategic about. You want that time frame to be long enough that the lender can get the appraisal back and reviewed and underwritten, right? So Adrian, is 21 days enough time right now? to get an appraisal back.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a 7-day guarantee. So.
Perfect.
Yep.
So you could even write 15. I mean, I would still pad it because once it gets it, he still has to have the underwriter look at it. Because what does this paragraph say? It says that after this time frame, the seller may give notice that seller may terminate the agreement at any time 3 days after delivery of that notice. 22 AR is the form. So Scott's buyer got his appraisal back, and then the 30th day passes. I can now send him, as the listing broker, signed by my seller, a notice that says, waive your financing or we are terminating. I don't get to keep his earnest money under this scenario, but I can get rid of him as a buyer. I don't want to, but I do want him to waive his financing, right? So we don't mind that they have this opportunity. We just need to be far enough down the road that Adrian and his underwriters have checked all the boxes and we're still in good shape. Does that make sense? Having said all that, probably less than 5% of sellers ever send this notice because they don't want to scare people off. Right? But if I got backup buyers beating my door down with higher offers, I'm definitely going to use it. Okay. And I'm going to hope that you get nervous and bail. Right? Appraisal less than the sales price, paragraph 3C. This is the one clause in our forms that actually, if you leave it blank, the default language benefits the seller, not the buyer. Every other one, it tends to default to the buyer's benefit. But this one defaults to the seller's benefit. So let's take a look at it. Buyer's waiver of the financing contingency under this paragraph 3 will or will not, it will if filled in, constitute waiver of the low appraisal clause. So let me say it in plainer English. If my buyer waives financing, he either will or will not also be waiving low appraisal. So the converse is true. I can waive financing without waiving low appraisal too, right? But only if I check the right box. That's why will, if not filled in, actually forces me to waive the low appraisal. I would want to check will not. In writing winning offers, check will. That shows them that you're aggressive, right? What's the probability that you're going to waive financing? Very low, like less than 1%. So I can check the will box. I can point out in my cover letter how aggressive we are. We even marked will in paragraph 3C of Form 22A with very little risk to my client. Sort of like the paragraph W striking that we talked about, right? This is another example of something that you can do, demonstrates aggressive behavior and conviction without increasing the risk for your client. Make sense? Yep. Be strategic about it though. There may be occasions where you don't want it. Sorry. Skip. Don't skip. Here. This is up here because never use this field. Adrian will never quote you closing costs as a percentage. He knows, and I know, that's the laziest cop-out approach, and sellers know it, and it makes it easier for them to strike it. If you put 3% in here, which is the program maximum for a lot of products, I know that you have no clue what your closing costs are. You're just trying to squeeze me for as much money as you can. And this is the easiest negotiation to put into effect. I put a line through it, initial it. I just save myself 9 grand, 12 grand, 15 grand, whatever it is, right? So use this field as a dollar amount and don't make it a round number. Adrian also will never quote you, give 5 grand. He just won't. He pulls it up on his computer and goes, the Joneses need 72.93. Perfect, that's the exact number I'm going to put in here. If you're working with an outside lender, number 1, learn from that, don't. Number 2 though, if they say, yeah, give me 8 grand, put 79.23. It's not quite 8 grand, but it's also not a round number. And the seller and the listing brokers see that it's, wow, that's very specific, must be real, right? That's what I want them to think. Does that make sense? You look like a light bulb just went on. I like that. Low appraisal. This is a common issue, right? Right now in a hot rising market, appraisers can't use actives, they can only use closed sales. So in a rising market, they're at a disadvantage. It's easier for us to do CMAs because we can look at the trajectory. Well, what happens when you're financing and your appraisal comes in low? The number one underwriting guideline in every loan product starts with language that says, we are going to lend X% of the purchase price or the appraised value, whichever is lower. So every dollar below this agreed upon price that the appraisal comes in low has to come out of my pocket, because Adrian's loan amount is still going to be based on the appraisal, and the purchase price is now higher. So I have to cover that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So this language is in here to protect the buyer from that risk. But it doesn't guarantee your deals are going to close. It just guarantees that you have a chance to revisit and negotiate, right? Sorry. You have to give a notice of low appraisal within 3 days of receiving the appraisal, right? And you have to include the appraisal and send it to the seller or the listing broker. The seller then has 10 days to decide whether they want to try and contest it by getting a reappraisal, agree to the lower price, or propose a different amount, like somewhere in between. Or they can just say, I don't care. If you want it, you're going to pay what we agreed to. Those are their 4 options. The vast majority of deals that get in this situation end up with number 3. Hey, we're 20 grand short. Can we split it? My client only has 5 grand extra. Can you cover the other 15? Whatever it is, we negotiate a number.
So can buyer terminate at this time?
If the seller rejects, or if we can't reach an agreement.
The seller has the right to terminate.
Yeah.
Buyer is buyer.
Well, seller doesn't
I
have the
mean-
right
I
to
mean
terminate.
buyer
Buyer has the right, yeah. See, buyer shall have 3 days from either the seller's notice of rejection, or if seller fails to respond, the day seller's response period ends, whichever is earlier, to A, waive financing, B, terminate the agreement, in which event the earnest money shall be refunded to the buyer. If the seller proposes a reduced price to amount more than the appraised value, buyer shall have 3 days to accept and represent that the buyer has sufficient funds to close, or terminate and keep the earnest money. So the buyer doesn't have to accept anything other than the appraised, dropping it to the appraised value. If the seller does that, the buyer has to close. Does that make sense to everybody? I can't hear you, sorry.
Take a lot of things. Why you need 3? Because the one of the battery.
No, it's in force. What she's saying is that it's only in effect based on your decision in 3C. No, it's in force until your financing is waived, and it might still be enforced depending on how you check that box. Does that make sense? And I'm sorry, Robin, I'm going to ask you to hold your questions because my audio on my laptop is terrible. What are some other things that we can do to minimize that risk for the seller? Because we're trying to make our offer attractive to the seller, right? Well, the least aggressive way is to do nothing and just leave the default language in there, right? And check will not. The next more aggressive would be to check will. But as we established earlier, it doesn't really increase your risk unless you waive your financing later, right? So that's a good one to just plan on doing. Scott?
How often do you, even though you get to that period where the lender's good, everything looks great as far as closing, financing, and the seller comes back and says, all right, now we've done all this, we want you to waive your financing?
Yeah, less than 5%.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, that's
Like
crazy.
it's probably way less than 1%.
I would never even.
I can't remember the last time I had a buyer that I represented that we were forced to waive financing. But I also do a lot more listings than any buyers, so I'm not a good measure. But it is wildly infrequent because sellers, they don't want to spook the buyer. They just want to know that you're moving forward. That's why having a lender like Adrian, who is more than happy to be in constant contact with the listing broker and give them updates and let them know that, yep, everything's plodding along, it keeps them from even asking for that 22 AR because they've been in contact with Adrian, right? Next, more aggressive is will. We covered that. The next most aggressive would be to use Form 22AD. This is a new form that the MLS created because we were having so many low appraisals. And it's a real simple form that just says, hey, if paragraph 7 gets triggered because of a low appraisal, I, the buyer, agree to cover the first blank dollars. Like in my example, it was I had $5 grand and it came in 20 low. Well, I'm just saying ahead of time, I'll cover $5 grand. I've had clients cover 40 grand, right? And that's powerful because before they selected my offer, there was 4 or 5 other offers. And if they were nervous because I'm financing that the appraisal might come in low at the number I've offered, well, now they know that the appraisal can come in 40 grand low and it won't affect them. Or 5 grand, whatever it is, right? The next more aggressive is to put an X through paragraph 7. What are we saying there? We're saying either we're confident it's going to appraise, but if it doesn't, we'll cover whatever the shortfall is. Yeah. Right? Only people with money can do that. But they could have scenarios, and Adrian's dealt with this, where I'm coming in as a 20% down buyer, the appraisal comes in low, and he has to switch me to a 10% down deal because I got to divert 10% to cover the shortfall. But I still qualify. We still close. Right? Yeah.
So if they choose cover a certain dollar amount, do we need to cross out the paragraph 7 in 22A?
No, it doesn't override that language. It just adds to it and it says, we don't even have to negotiate if it's only this amount because I'm already saying I will cover it.
Okay, so we just keep the paragraph 7 as is, then add 22D.
You add 22D, or AD, yeah.
Okay.
Right? So striking paragraph 7 is more aggressive, right? But in the end, ultimately, you need to read it and understand it. Because when these come up, it's stressful for your client. The better you understand it, the calmer you speak to them about what their options are. Did you notice in all of those options, the buyer got their earnest money back? The only option where they still were forced to close, they're getting it for cheaper now. Right? So there isn't a lot of downside risk, but man, you want to see heads explode? Watch their reaction when Adrian calls and says, I'm sorry to inform you, but your appraisal came in at 380, not 400. Panic sets in. But with you as their Sherpa, calm, cool, and collected, saying, hey, I already had this built into our agreement, just in case. We have language to protect us. We're gonna negotiate this thing out. So let me explain what your options are. And in none of them are you forced to overpay for this house. Just know that, right? That's really powerful language to somebody who's panicking at the moment, right? And then we just go right through, we're gonna do this to notify him. He's gonna have 10 days to decide what he wants to do, and then you're gonna have 4 options. We're gonna see how he responds before we decide whether we wanna just go, we're done, right? Low appraisal, I think we've covered enough. Inspection addendum. There are degrees of inspecting too, right? The most conservative one is we're going to do an inspection and we may renegotiate things depending on the outcome of the inspection, right? I can tell you, I have rarely put 10 in this field. The only time I've ever put 10 in that field is when my client insisted on attending and was out of town. Because otherwise, I'll do it without him, or we'll do it just faster, right? Think about this. If I have a contingency of 5 days, does that include weekends? Right. So if I got mutual today, and I had a 5-day contingency, Thursday's day 1, Friday's day 2, Monday's day 3, Tuesday's day 4, Wednesday is day 5. A 5-day inspection contingency gets me a week every time unless I get mutual over the weekend, right? Because then it would be Monday through Friday and it would expire on Friday. But otherwise, whew, that's good. So you should never have a 6-day. You should never have a 7-day. Because those both include counting the weekends and end up being, in some cases, in the 6s, ends up being shorter than a 5, right? Does that make sense? So be as short as you can. It allows you to do things like call the listing broker and say, hey man, accept our offer. We're going to inspect like this. And you'll be back on the market by the weekend if it doesn't go well. That's comforting, right? If they're worried or skeptical. All right. So what are the 5 choices? These are in progressively more aggressive position, right? Just do the inspection. That's easy, right? Do a pre-inspection. That allows your client to get all the knowledge before they write their offer. In your offer, you can even say, put in a new water heater, right? Just know that anything you ask for is a weakness in your offer. Number 3, perform an inspection of the subject. Oh, this is language in the Form 34 or 22D, right? Buyer to perform an inspection of the subject property. Inspection is for informational purposes only, and buyer agrees not to raise any issue or renegotiate items if the cost to cure is lower than blank dollars. You can put whatever number you want in there, right? Even stronger language, buyer agrees that inspection contingency NWMLS Form 35 shall only apply to material issues and defects. A material issue / defect is hereby defined as any singular issue defect identified within a licensed inspector's report that totals more than blank dollars, you pick the number, to repair. If one or more material issue or defect is present, then all terms of Form 35 shall apply. And if no material issue or defect is identified by a licensed inspector, the inspection contingency shall be deemed waived. So it proactively waives if there's nothing in there. I've had this, I've done that one with $2,500 as a number, and John Wright said, I can fix that for $2,000, and I'm like, really? That's a shame, because $2,500 allows us to negotiate. Oh, yeah, I forgot I was going to have to get more parts, labor, whatever. So we could give a bid that says repairs cost $2,500, now let's negotiate, right? It also demonstrates professionalism, right? Doesn't that read like it was written by an attorney? It's very thorough, right? We just did one where we said, if all the issues add up to $10,000, then we want to negotiate. The way it's written right now is any one issue. Does that make sense? Use it the way you want to use it, the way your client wants to use it. It makes your offer more attractive. And of course, the most powerful is to just waive inspection. But remember, include Form 35, have them check the box, right? I'm going to move a little faster now. If you pre-inspect, check that box. If you waive, check that box. Both of them say, buyer's been advised to obtain a building hazardous substance, building and zoning code, pest or soils and stability inspection, and to condition the closing of this agreement on the results, but buyer elects to waive the right. That protects you and me. Make sense? So don't just leave the form out. You're shaking your head, Julia. So you have a buyer, they want to buy 1234 Main Street, and they say, oh, I don't want to even put an inspection contingency in there. And you say, no problem. What I'll do is I'll put a form in the agreement where we explicitly waive it. And then I can highlight it to the seller that we're aggressive, we're waiving inspection. I still put a Form 35 in my offer, but I have my client check this box instead of paragraph 1, which is what invokes the inspection contingency. We leave that blank and we check this box. And that protects you and me because it says, buyer was advised to do an inspection, but he elects to waive.
Why would the buyer do that though?
Because in the hottest market in decades, sometimes you got to be aggressive.
I waive the house inspection, try to get the house down, because so many people are trying to cut
What
in.
if there was something wrong with the house?
That's a problem, isn't it?
You take the risk.
Yeah, but at least half of offers waive inspection. That's why I'm giving you advice on ways to still do an inspection, but be viewed as being aggressive. One that's not in there because it borders on unethical is waive inspection and then perform one during the 3-day Form 17 window, because you're allowed to terminate, rescind under Form 17, revoke, I think is the word that uses. I could do an inspection during that window. But man, you want to see a hot listing broker. They find out you inspected anyway, because you did this to get accepted, and then you inspected anyway. Pisses people off.
And then you ask for stuff.
And then you ask, hey, I don't have to terminate if you don't mind putting a new water heater in, right? May.
What if the property is owner occupied? How can you do the inspection?
My client wants to come by and measure for new furniture.
With the contract.
My client's interior designer wears tool bags and a tape measure.
And has a ladder and needs to go underneath. When does the Form 17 3-day start? Is it?
Upon delivery. It's a great question.
So you don't.
You're like a shill, man. That was the next thing up. Yeah, that's really important to know, right? I've seen so many agents who get worked up because there's no Form 17 in the listing. That's unprofessional. That's terrible. It is unprofessional, but it benefits my client. Your unprofessionalism gives my client 3 days and then some, because I'm not going to rush you to get it to me. I've had deals that we could terminate under Form 17 right before the closing date because the listing broker was so idiotic about delivering Form 17. It's 3 days that begins upon delivery.
Okay, let's say it's in the listing.
Then it's considered received upon mutual.
Okay.
That's why
that was the second
when it's
one.
in there, that's why you have them sign. We're going to cover that.
That you've accepted.
Yeah,
Received it.
On the signature page, this is page 6, right? This first line is buyer hereby acknowledges receipt. So in your example, I'm saying, hey, on January 31, I got a copy. My buyer says I got a copy, right? So my 3 days would be tomorrow, Thursday, or tomorrow, Friday, Monday, right?
Still doesn't count weekends, which is awesome.
Still doesn't count weekends. The second line
The same
is I am explicitly waiving the right to revoke. So I'm saying I don't need those 3 days, right? So I can be really aggressive and proactively waive my 3 days. I certainly wouldn't do that if my plan was to do a secret ninja inspection in that window of time. But I also don't do that often. Like I can count on one hand how many times I've done that. So in most cases, I'll have them waive it, because I probably already have some sort of inspection contingency or something else. That's the way you want to think about contingencies. If I have 4 contingencies, let's leave financing out of this part of the conversation, because financing is a beast in and of itself, right? Because it runs all the way to the end and even past closing. But on the other ones, I might have a 3-day and a 5-day, I got the Form 17 3-day, and I have a 10-day inspection. I can waive all the 3s and the 5 because I got the 10. I don't need them to run concurrently.
Keep your longest.
Right? Ashley.
So if I'm a buyer's agent and the offer get mutually accepted on the same day that I write the offer, so does that mean I still have 3 days to revoke the offer just because we prove that the Form 17?
You don't have to prove anything.
I do not need to prove anything?
You just get a free 3 days to change your mind.
Wow.
As long as you didn't sign this second line, which already waived it. Right?
Cool.
Yeah.
I pre-inspected once without getting permission and filling out the
All right.
pre-inspection.
You guys have been awesome. I appreciate your patience. Hopefully this is good. This is the last section, all right? So, selling your offer, right? Why does this matter? Well, man, we've put a lot of work into this, haven't we? We've made all those phone calls, strategy sessions. I pulled comps, we did color picture CMA tour. I've rewritten the offer maybe more than once, right? Why on earth would I just sort of chuck it in and pray, right? This is the time to really step up and work hard and shine, right? It's all about the presentation of it, right? We use a cover email. It's in V4. It actually is called a fax cover sheet in V4, your offer fax cover sheet. But we do everything via email now, right? So just make an email signature out of it, like I did. Buyer love letter, right? Could you do a buyer love letter for an investor who's buying it as a rental?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. It's not. You're not going to push the same emotional buttons, but you absolutely can, right? But it's powerful to a seller especially one who raised their own family in that house or lived there a long time, to hear that this young couple is going to do exactly what we did, right? Claudia and I have lived in our house for over 20 years. My oldest was 18 months old, so we raised both our kids there. It'll be cool to us to sell it to a young couple who's starting out. Way more than it would be to an investor who wants to turn it into a rental, right? Communicate that. Coach your client. Have your client get a good photo to paste into the Word doc and then print it and sign it. In V4, there are samples. I send them to my client. Hey, if you're not a good writer, plagiarize the crap out of these. Just change the facts so they relate to you, right? The purchase and sale agreement is next in your little love package, right? Pre-approval letter. You should have it. It should mirror the offer, right? It should be the purchase price that you have offered. It should be current date, not, you know, it shouldn't even be 30 days old. It should be fresh. And I know Adrian's held me in a couple dozen times where I'm like, I hate to ask, I know it's Saturday and you're on your third beer. Can you just can you just update the date? Because the price is the same for the Joneses. And he probably does it on his phone, I guess. Anyway, make sure that pre-approval is part of the strength of your offer. Yes, ma'am?
So you get one when you first start working with your buyer, and then you're saying you get a second one?
Yeah.
Just an updated date?
Yep.
We like to write them on every single offer you put in, just because it's got the property address, the exact offer, the current date. It lets me know you're putting an offer in, so I'll call the listing agent. Like, it's just every single time they put an offer.
His pre-approval is like 4 pages long because it's also a marketing piece, not like look at me. It's like look at what we do and how it benefits you, listing broker, right? Which is really good stuff.
Yeah, his pre-approval.
But once your buyer is in his pipeline, like he's already been pre-approved, then it's just a text message or a phone call. Hey, we found one. Here's the address. Here's the price. We're hoping to submit by this time. Let me know if you're able to do that. And Adrian's got a team, so even if he's traveling, he's got people that will do it.
Teamwork.
Right? Then, and not every lender does this, Adrian will also call that listing broker. And as he mentioned in a training a couple weeks ago, it's uncommon for him to not have already done deals in that office. May not be with that listing broker, but somebody in the office will know who he is and that he did a good job. And he can highlight that. He can go, oh, you know Susie in your office? I just did a deal 2 months ago with her. It was great. Really enjoyed working with her. I'm sure you're just as great as she is, or whatever, right? He's got sales in his blood.
I sent you a sample of a love letter that won me a deal that wasn't the highest.
Cool. Well, we can put it in V4, add it to the library.
I always thought you'd just throw it up there. I wasn't going to add it to the list.
Yeah. Who uses canned responses in Gmail?
I wish I knew how.
Right? It is a plugin. Add it if you don't have it. Create signatures. Right? But look, right here, offer on your listing app. I click on that. It changes the email to that. And then I just edit this. Offer on your Smith listing at 1234 Main Street. Change Nico and Randy, right? That's just who I happen to write the first one to. And then I edit it and make it relevant to my offer. Right? Change the price. Add strength. Hey, I waived paragraph W. Hey, we added language so that we are going to do an inspection, but only if we see stuff that's worse than 10 grand. Whatever I did, I want to highlight it in here, and I want to compliment him. Yes, Alice?
Can you send that out?
Absolutely, yeah. This is actually the offer fax cover sheet I was talking about is where this comes from. But I will send it out for sure. Right? I use this on every offer. It highlights to them what they should draw their eyes to and what they should highlight to their customer. And by complimenting them in the email, it increases the likelihood they're going to forward the email to their client because it makes them look good. So it's a way for me to increase the chance of effectively talking directly to their seller. And I don't know if you've realized it yet, but I'm pretty persuasive. Any questions on this? All right. Here you go. Offer love letter, offer fax cover sheet template, offer cover sheet example, right? Download those, create your own. They aren't perfect, but they're a starting point, and they're a template that you can modify for your own use. Right? Then you send it in. When you send it in, you're going to email the listing broker. You're going to CC the listing broker's firm. You're going to CC our firm. Right? That's our document email address. Notice at hometownadvisorre.com. So if York is a listing broker and he works for Windermere, I'm going to email it to him. I'm going to CC Windermere, CC notice at hometownadvisorre.com. I'm going to use that email that was on the previous screen, and then I'm going to attach my buyer love letter, my purchase and sale, my pre-approval for my lender.
What's the difference between pending and a notice?
Pending is when I get mutual, that's how I get over to CAT.
But I need to update some forms or something, then I'll do the pending. Like
Once it gets signed around, you send it to pending at, so that CAT can put it into the system. But you don't send it to pending at if it doesn't get accepted. Right? You also are going to post it to HTA offersandlistings.com. Every offer you write, it's only like 5 or 6 fields. It's easy. Just go to that website. You just put in, yep, made an offer for the Joneses on this MLS number, and it did or didn't get accepted. That's a state requirement.
I know he's doing some training.
And be ready to revise and rebut, right?
So
Julia.
only if it's a listed property.
Nope, any offer you write. Any offer you write, any listing you take.
What if it's a sell by owner?
Yep. If you wrote it on.
Ed Lane is,
Yeah.
Ed Lane or Scott Schreckenbach.
Be ready to revise and rebut means if you get that random call, wrong number call like I described earlier, work it. Hey man, don't let me lose. What's it gonna take? Give me 2 minutes to call my client. Right? You guys are all nimble.
Actually, Scott's out of town.
We made it.
Which is a new software called Nimble, or a new app.
What do you think?
You heard of that?
Was that helpful? Thank you. Hey, before I shut off the video, any questions? Allison, you put your hand up.
Mostly, I have pre-inspection today. There's already been 7 done.
Nice.
Any advice? I mean, pretty much that helped so much. I know what to do as far as writing up the offer, regardless of the competition.
Right.
Do you know any of the other agents?
That have pre-inspected?
That have pre-inspected, yeah.
I don't actually.
'Cause sometimes
I
you'll
didn't
bump
ask.
into them, you'll see their cards.
Oh, yeah.
You can call them and say, hey, do you want to share the cost of your inspection? I can give you $200, we'll split it, right?
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
How old's the home?
It's 1977.
Yeah. I mean, my advice is to use one of the 5 levels of inspecting.
It kind of sounds what I was.
Yeah,
kind
talk
of
to your
doing.
client to see, where's their comfort level. I can tell you the most common is if they aren't going to waive, to use the, well, as long as it's not more than X dollars, right? Use one of these. Number 3 or 4.
There's been 7 pre-inspections?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Did you want to take a picture of that, or did you already?
Heavy
Yeah.
big fight,
I think
man.
I might have.
Because your client's going to
Get in
dictate
the ring.
for you whether they're
Get
comfortable
bloody.
waiving, right?
Right.
And if they're not, you shouldn't, right? Let them lose a couple times, and maybe on the 3rd or 5th one, they go, you know what, let's just waive, because we really like this house, we're willing to take on whatever.
Right.
Um,
I just don't want him to keep spinning his wheels.
For sure.
He's
Yeah.
already done 1 inspection, second.
It's a tenuous sort of thing you gotta cover, right? It's wonderfully powerful because it's an opportunity for you to really shine the fact that you are always putting his interest first. Hey man, I just don't want to see you keep spending $400 a pop, but I also know this house is 40 years old, right? So we could probably bet the furnace is toast. we could do our own inspection. I mean, it's a real benefit I have that many of you might also
Form
have.
17.
What's that?
The Form 17 contingency.
Right. No, I was going to say, I used to work construction. So I can go in crawl spaces and attics and tell people if I see anything. And that gives them a lot of comfort. Often, I don't have to do that very often. Usually, because at the beginning of our relationship, I always do this on the first day of showings. I impart upon them subtly how knowledgeable I am about houses. Like I walk through the house and I go, I make a joke out of it. I'm kind of a lard ass, but this house is built solid. It's got good bones. And I'm looking around and they're like, yeah, you're right, it does. And then I'll do remember the cabinet drawer trick?
No.
I shouldn't say trick, it's a fact, right? I have a technique I use in every kitchen. And I go into the kitchen and I go, wow, this is a nice kitchen. What do you think? Oh yeah, it's great. And I go, those cabinets look decent. Do you know how to tell good cabinets from bad cabinets? They never do, right? Because who thinks of that? Only a cabinet guy thinks of that, right? And I'll go, it's really easy, come check this out. And I'll have them come over to me and I'll open one of the cabinet drawers. And I'll go, here's how you tell good cabinets from bad. You see where the track is? And wherever it is, I'm going to do the same thing, right? I'll go, well, on cheap cabinets, it's right here on the side, the runners, you know, with the tracks I'm talking about, right? I go, the tracks are right on the sides of the drawer. Those are the cheap ones. Unfortunately, this is a cheap one, if it is, right? I'll go, the medium or moderate quality, that track will cup the bottom edge of the drawer. The high quality ones, it's actually tucked underneath and not even visible to you. And the really good ones, and then I close the drawer, and I go, the really good ones have the anti-finger slamming.
Those are nice.
Soft close.
They go.
Right?
Have you added that to a lot of cabinets these days? So are you even a cheap cabinet?
I don't know.
So
You don't have to use my script.
I guess it might even look really good just being like we waived it all together because he was saying to put in a 35P for pre-inspection. But if we're just like, hey, we waived it.
Is he going to do a pre-inspection?
Yes, today at 3.
Oh, he is. Okay,
so,
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's already scheduled and everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could still like throw that in, but I just don't really overwhelm him.
I mean, he's already going there.
Yeah.
You're not likely to cancel.
He likes John Wright, so.
Yeah, you're not going to cancel it. John actually will discount if it's, you know, the second or third one.
Oh, nice.
Anyway.
Okay, that's great.
Just, hey, anything you can do to help my guy, this is the third one.
Yeah, right.
Second one, whatever. Yeah, so do 35P, check the pre-inspection box.
Okay.
If you don't win, then for the next one, go, I hate to keep doing this to you, man.
Yeah.
But here's the situation. The house is this age. We've been through it. It seems decent bones, but I know you might want to inspect. What do you want to do?
Okay. And I guess the only other question I had was, I walked out of the room, I think, when you were explaining this, but instead of doing, so the price is $600, which I feel like it might go up to like $675 or more. Like
Really?
it's, yeah, I mean, just looking at the comps, I'm like, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
But I mean, that being said, would it be beneficial to put our offer price at $650 to start with, and then do an escalator up to $675 or something like that?
Yeah.
Just adds more strength.
You don't necessarily have to start at $650. As long as you're starting above the asking price, it's $600 even.
$600 even,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like $625 would have the same psychological effect on the seller, which is, wow, they started above asking and they escalated another 50 grand on top of that. That's beneficial.
Right, okay.
Really drive home the importance of a large increment in the escalator.
5,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we
maybe
did on our
even
last
10.
offer, yeah.
On 600 grand, I'd steer them to 10. So for those of you that aren't familiar with it, the escalator clause has 2 fields you fill in. How much you're going to beat people by, and up to what maximum number. And people focus on the maximum number, but they go too light on the what we're going to beat you by. Well, if you just put $1,000 in that, or 5,000, right? And you are the highest offer, but you're only highest by 5 grand, and this other offer that's 5 grand below you is stronger than your offer in every other way, bigger earnest money, faster closing, bigger down payment, you know, all this stuff. I don't care about your 5 grand. I want the sure thing, right? 10 grand makes me start to think maybe I should think twice.
And that would work even if our limit was 675 and somebody was at 670? Would it just kick it up 5 grand? since
It'll just
it
go,
would
yeah,
be-
you'll never
Okay.
exceed that,
Okay,
whatever your
and it
max
wouldn't
is.
just cancel altogether and just be like, oh, I
Correct.
guess it's not 10 grand?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
I